We're here to make a new type of news.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Making news just for you. It's March 13th here in Seoul. I'm Shin Yeun, and this is News Generation, where we make the news at Arirang's very own open studio. Every morning, we'll discuss the top issues and latest current affairs affecting people in their 20s and 30s. Joining me in the studio is Cheska Dainhong.
Happy Monday, everyone.
Happy Monday. And Walter Lee.
Lovely to be here.
And both are here to speak on behalf of those in their 20s and 30s. Now, let's start with the news feed. Every day, we make a news feed that looks at which hashtags and news items have been trending on social media over the past 24 hours. The first hashtag is Silicon Valley Bank. In just 48 hours, Silicon Valley Bank collapsed on Friday, making it the second largest failure of a financial institution in U.S. history. It all started when SVB announced that it sold a bunch of securities at a loss and that it would sell $2.25 billion in new shares to match the balance. This caused panic among key venture capital firms who reportedly told companies to withdraw their money from the bank. SVB's rapid crash also comes partly from the Fed's decision to aggressively raise interest rates over the past year. Higher interest rates caused asset values to go down, leaving the bank stuck with losses. Since then, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation has taken over. The FDIC will cover up to $250,000 per depositor, and payments will start as early as this Monday. The second hashtag is Stop Willow Project. Now, this hashtag has been trending on various social media platforms. The Willow Project is a major oil drilling project on Alaska's North Slope, which is America's largest piece of undisturbed public land. Alaska Native tribes and the state's bipartisan congressional delegation have welcomed the drilling project as a much-needed source of revenue and jobs. But climate groups have been against this, saying it would pose severe health and environmental risks. Some also said this goes against President Biden's ambitious clean energy and strong-headed climate agenda. But local media outlets have forecast that the Biden administration is soon set to approve it, with a final decision to be announced next week. And the last hashtag is HYBE. BTS's agency HYBE has decided to step out of the takeover for K-pop giant SM Entertainment. HYBE on Sunday said it made its decision to call off the takeover of SM after observing that the market showed signs of overheating due to competition with Kakao and its entertainment unit, Kakao Entertainment. This now means that instead of HYBE, Kakao and its entertainment unit will have management control over SM, and HYBE will cooperate with Kakao in the platform business. Kakao is still set on its quest to take control of SM. It's sought to buy up to around 35% of the music label by March 26th. Now, we're going to take a look into the second hashtag, Stop Willow Project, in more detail. It seems there are two arguments to this story. One, presented by natives in Alaska, is claiming that this project will make much-needed jobs and revenue to the remote region. In a nationwide perspective, it will also help bring down the cost of fuel. The other opinion has to do with environmental concerns. Environmental advocates are saying this project would pollute one of the few places in America that has been preserving wildlife and clean nature. They're also saying Willow's carbon pollution would exacerbate global warming, which the Biden administration has claimed it will aggressively address. Now, Walter, I would like to first hear your thoughts on the first argument. Let's say you're an Alaska native living so far from the active job market. And would you say yes to this project even though you know about the climate change consequences? And even if you're not living in Alaska, this project could potentially bring down living costs such as cheaper fuel prices. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, first of all, I'd have to say, according to our reports, the Alaskan Native tribes and the state bipartisan congressional delegation have welcomed this drilling project as it's much needed for a source of revenue and jobs. Now, I know that some people in the Native tribes are concerned about the environment as well. However, there seems to be a large majority that are actually for this project. So I would have to take sides of the Alaska Native tribes, as it's their people that will benefit from this project, decrease the living costs of, let's say, cheaper fuel, as we mentioned.
Right.
Alaska doesn't have that large population. I think the last time I checked, it was just over 700,000. So I can't imagine the job market is very big there as well. So this is going to create jobs that hopefully are only available for the Alaskan citizens, therefore they can benefit off it. But obviously, I also want cleaner energy in the future, but I think that this project will be beneficial for the Alaskans now.
I think environmental issues are always a tricky problem because you have a cost, the cost being the environment, but also if you're an Alaska native, way too far from the active job market that can, disadvantage you in an economic sense. But many of the younger generation are concerned about the environmental impact. I think that's because we're also seeing for ourselves how much the planet is warming up. It seems like we're living in a ticking time bomb. So I feel that we, as the new generation, have the responsibility to sustain the environment for the next one. What are your thoughts on this, Cheska?
I really love that we as a new generation are responsible for this because, just recently I've definitely noticed the season shortening. It's getting bi-seasonal, and Korea was known for having, transitional seasons, right? But it's getting either too hot or too cold, and that's just one of them. And, with COVID-19, I think all of us has experienced the exigent circumstances that we're all in this together. Now, when something happens, the environmental issue is never regional. It's global.
It's a global
Everyone
thing.
is affected. So I think this is definitely a time for us to get our act together and then step up for the responsibility for the future.
All right, and that was our news feed for this Monday. Moving on to our main discussion topic for today. Take a look at the screen to find out what we'll talk about.
Hair loss. Is it a health concern or a self-esteem issue? In Korea, it seems to be both, especially with a growing number of young people suffering with this. The National Health Insurance Service found that in 2020, 6 out of 10 people treated for balding were aged between 20 and 50. Some local governments are trying to help these young people out. How? By offering cash vouchers so that they can get treatment. Seongdong District Office in Seoul has become the first municipal authority to do so this year. Seoul Metropolitan Government is aiming to implement a similar move. This measure is getting a lot of attention. While some are saying hair loss is a definite concern among young people, others are raising questions about whether it's appropriate to use state resources for a condition that's not even life-threatening. Today, News Shen looks at 3 questions. 1. Why is the new generation so concerned about hair loss? How do young people in Korea perceive this condition? 2. Are they on board with officials subsidizing hair loss treatment? 3. How is hair loss viewed abroad? Is there any other case where the government is giving out financial support to those suffering from this condition?
As we just saw in today's video, we're going to be talking about a new welfare policy that has been discussed fervently here in Korea, giving out cash vouchers to young people who need treatment for hair loss. So I would first like to ask you two in the studio whether you can relate to a growing number of our generation. Do you guys have any concerns over losing hair?
I mean, as girls, I think you can very much relate, and our viewers who are out there, our hair is our identity.
Definitely it is.
We spend so much time styling it. It makes or breaks how we feel that day. So definitely hair is important for all of us. But I definitely noticed that our generation is actively talking about receding hairlines or partial balding due to stress.
Right.
And according to Healthline article, there is an actually published research that our generation is actually losing hair much earlier than previous generation. So I can see it becoming an issue, and also it's causing a lot of stress on us as well in a society where appearance is very important.
Definitely. What about you, Walter?
Well, yes, I can. I am actually one of the many people who is getting treatment for their hair.
Really?
Are you really?
Although today I look like I'm not doing too bad.
Yeah.
Thank you to the makeup ladies. However, yes, I have been on medication to stop hair prevention loss. So basically it's to stop the hair from falling out. I did consider getting a hair transplant, but I decided against that. But yes, I definitely like hearing this news today that we might be able to get funded by the government.
Right. Now, that's exactly why I'm actually quite surprised that you suffered with it yourself, because it looks like you have an amazing hair right now.
Yeah,
very
it
luscious.
takes a lot of styling.
I know, but it seems like the number of hair loss patients has grown exponentially, especially among youngsters like yourself.
Yes, well, thank you for starters. So according to data released by the National Health Insurance Service last year, 233,000 hair loss patients are in Korea from 2020. Quite a lot. Now, there are 22.2% of those people were in their 30s and 20.7% were in their 20s. So for me, I started to notice a more deep receding hairline in my late 20s, early 30s. So it does match up, I think, with this, and that's when I did start to get treatment.
But that's a lot for 20s and 30s.
It is a lot, and I think maybe, like you said, stress has a lot to do with it as well. So a lot of people in their 20s are very stressed out getting a job, passing university, etc.
Right. To sum up, so 4 out of 10 people suffering with hair loss are in their 20s and 30s. Now, that's why some lawmakers and officials are trying to provide subsidies for treatment for these youngsters concerned about hair loss, right?
Right, exactly. So the subsidy plan that is still in discussion, but the general idea is that for people between the ages of 19 and 39, you're eligible for an oral medication subsidy of up to 200,000 won. That's roughly about 150 USD annually. Now, there's a lot of controversy and discussion surrounding the pros and cons of using our taxes in this regard. But there are some cities and suburbs like Chungnam Boryong and Songdong district that have already begun implementing this subsidy plan.
Right.
Now, there is a heated discussion regarding the fairness of it all. For instance, why only hair loss, right? And the actual effectiveness of the oral medication. And of course, the growing concern about how are we actually using our tax money.
So there's definitely some controversy regarding this welfare policy, but what do you guys think? Should hair loss be treated as a societal problem, or as some are saying, is this policy too lucrative and using our taxes for a relatively minor, non-life-threatening problem, especially when there's a lot of other severe health problems that still need to be tackled?
Well, of course I'm on board with this welfare policy as a person who takes this medication. It isn't cheap to get it on a prescription
Definitely.
on a monthly, week, well, I guess it goes every 6 months, 3 months or whatever. However, if obviously there were better ways we could use our taxes, example, if I knew that we could cure cancer tomorrow without this funding, of course I would go bald for it, right? I'm okay with that. But I'm quite biased when it comes to this decision because I am on this medication and I do want to continue using this medication until I get very old and it is no longer needed. For me, it was a confidence builder.
Right.
When I very first started taking it, I noticed that I was getting a bit more confidence back, but once I noticed my receding hairline was getting deeper, that's when I was having a very terrible time with my self-confidence.
And Cheska, what are your thoughts on this issue?
I definitely can relate to Walter's concept about confidence. As we just discussed, when we have a bad hair day, just, a simple bad hair day, it pretty much tanks the entire day.
It ruins your day.
It does. So I can definitely understand what he means by actually losing the hair affecting the confidence. And however, I think there are countless things that affect youth confidence. Acne, weight issue, teeth, and not to mention the more controversial plastic surgery.
Definitely.
So I think there are other issues that might become a priority, and it's very hard to judge which is better than the other. And also the other thing is I really, applaud the government for trying to pay attention to the more up-and-coming issues of our generations, but I think there are more exigent issues such as, maybe housing prices,
Definitely.
or education, or care for disabilities, not necessarily in that order of importance.
Right.
So, and also as we mentioned, there is some question about the actual effectiveness of the oral medication that is still being tested. So it can be seen as a sort of a hasty move for the government to, suddenly put the money into this subsidy plan just to get the votes of our generation.
And if I add on to the confidence part that we discussed, I think Koreans especially are suffering with a lot of confidence when it comes to hair because our beauty standards are so narrow.
That's such a great point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So in order for you to be beautiful here in Korea, it equals you need to have a lot of hair.
Yeah.
Flowing, luscious hair.
Luscious hair, as if you see on the CFs.
Yes.
Exactly. So as much as a growing number of young people are either facing or are concerned about this problem, we prepared an interview with a doctor treating hair loss here in Seoul, and let's learn a few tips on how to slow down this process or even prevent it in the first place. Let's also ask him what he thinks about this latest welfare policy. Let's now include in our talks a doctor treating hair loss patients here in Seoul. It's Dr. Junhyun Hong, a surgeon working at Modaur Clinic in Seoul. Great to have you here, Dr. Hong.
Hello, good morning,
morning.
RNTV audience. I'm Junhyun Hong, Representative Director of Modaur Clinic.
All right. Doctor, as you said, you must have treated many patients, but exactly how many young people come to you for treatment and what causes hair loss at such a young age?
Proportion of young patients from 20 to 30s who visit hospital for hair loss treatment is increasing recently. The cause is underlying disease such as metabolic syndrome, diabetes, hypolipidemia, or overweight, and thyroid syndrome. And it can be caused by stress, bleaching, or hair dyeing, and down palm at a beauty salon. But I think this is the most important thing. Recognition that hair loss is a disease and has to be treated from early stage. About 20 years ago, the proportion of young patients who visit hospital for hair loss medication or hair transplantation surgery was not that high, about 1 or 2 out of 10. However, in recent broadcasts, celebrities who have hair transplantation surgery or take hair drug medicine tell their treatment experience frequently as a story material. It results in an improvement of awareness. Hair loss is not a disease that needs to be hidden.
All right. And here in the studio, do you guys have any questions that you would like to ask Dr. Hong?
Dr. Hong, as we mentioned throughout our discussion, hair loss could impact your self-esteem of young people in our generation. Are there any studies that show possible impact on our mental health?
The psychological problem is the greatest. Depression in adolescence and a serious social problem leading to suicide. There are few studies on proportion of hair loss patients among depressed patients, but more than half of the patients with severe hair loss taking antidepressant are reported.
I see. And Walter, do you have any questions?
Yeah, so do you think the government support for hair loss treatment will be helpful?
I think it will be a great help. Generally, hair loss begins in early to mid-30s. However, patients who have family history begins from late teenage. These patients are at a time when the cost of the hair loss treatment can be heavy. Hair loss medication should be taken for the rest of your life, like hypertension. It costs about 20,000 to 30,000 won per month. If you combine with nutritional support or other medicines, the monthly costs of the medication alone will exceed 50,000 won. This amount does not include scalp hair treatment or transplantation surgery. Scalp hair treatment is about 200,000 won per session, and hair transplantation surgery costs more than 6 million won based on average transplanted amount of 3,000 hairs. It can be a big help if government apply health insurance or support medical expenses with uninsured.
I see. All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Hong. It was a pleasure to hear from you and your insights.
Thank you for your kind interview. Bye-bye.
All right. Now, Dr. Hong mentioned a lot of professional advice and his thoughts on this welfare policy, I think. But did any point fascinate you, Cheska?
Definitely the question that I asked about the psychological impact and the mental health. So it seems that people, he even said, some people even commit suicide, and it definitely affects them very heavily. And what brought to my question was, is the stress actually causes hair receding, but then the hair receding itself exacerbates the stress, so it's an ongoing cycle.
It is.
And at the same time, it brought the question of how did this all start? Why do people actually get so concerned about this? And we kind of discussed it with the beauty standard and also dietary problems, but it seems that there's a cycle that just keeps exacerbating each other.
Definitely, it's a vicious cycle that all stems out from a societal problem. And what about you, Walter?
I'm actually surprised I still have hair. Because I think some of the things that he named in there were things that I did, down perming as well as dyeing your hair. He said stress. I was like, I tick all those boxes. How am I still able to have hair at this point? So yes, I was very surprised of the amount of things that he mentioned that I have. And
Exactly. I was quite shocked as well.
Maybe the amount that you're losing is actually not that much compared to what you have done.
right,
Yeah.
that's true. Yeah, that
Compared
could
to
be true.
what you're doing to your hair. All right, and as a daily morning program in an international broadcast channel, we try to find out what millennials and Gen Z around the world think about our discussion topic of the day. So we asked our viewers whether they suffered from hair loss, and if so, how they treated it. So here's what they had to say. YHNO89 said, accept it and become the next Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, so society will start to associate baldness with muscles. Raul279 said, sadly, yes, I've been suffering from hair loss since like 4 or 5 years ago, and the factors are mostly stress. I'm using special shampoo and cosmetics to prevent it. Tiras Bell saying, I'm currently experiencing the results of male pattern baldness. I'm treating my hair with minoxidil, one of the 2 FDA-approved products proven to reduce or stop hair loss. Eventually, I will get a hair transplant. Now, our viewers were very courageous and kind enough to participate and share their stories with us. So what do you guys think about these comments?
I mean, all of the comments were very honest and brave. I love them all, but you saw me laughing. The first comment was absolutely
Right.
it nailed exactly what I was thinking. Why not add Bruce Willis in there as well?
Exactly. And Walter?
So yeah, Raul and Tiras Bell. I feel
Solidarity.
Ya. I feel ya. We got to get through this. We got to, stay strong and be together and fight this baldness that we're trying to stop.
You know, I love that immediate bonding.
Yes.
know.
Yes. We're now joined at the hair,
Bonded baldness.
the remaining hair.
And did you see Walter's a little
Yeah.
emotion?
I
Solidarity
definitely
emotion.
did. Now, all right, every day we do upload questions related to our discussion topic for our viewers to answer. And if you want to participate, please search ArirangNews on YouTube. Look into our community tab. The link is right below. Now, let's end off with our final thoughts on today's topic. How would you guys like to see this hair treatment or hair loss treatment policy move forward?
And I completely understand people who do get affected, as I too live in this society. But I also think the root cause of it all is from a conformed beauty standard, as we mentioned, that regards a certain look as wrong, not different.
Right.
And we kind of laughed and smiled about it, but why not Dwayne "Rock" Johnson? Why not Bruce Willis
Definitely.
in South Korea, right? So even though receding hairline and hair loss could be seen as more natural, if we just maybe perhaps change our perception a little bit.
Definitely.
And not to mention that we have to be careful with our tax money, but what we manifest onto society.
And Walter?
I'm obviously agreeing with Cheska about the tax money. It should be actually, allocated very well. But again, it's a very biased point of view. I would really, really like this benefit to go through, and I would like to use it because it's also helping me save money in other places as well.
Right.
So I'm all for it.
And Walter, I hope Cheska's last comment really convinced you in some way. It's okay to go bald. It's not wrong. It's
You
just
can be
different.
the Asian Dwayne "Rock" Johnson.
Yeah, you can be the Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and News Generation.
Let muscle be the new hair.
Definitely. And today we talked about one of the most unique welfare policies the new gen are talking about here in Korea, the government giving out money to younger people who are trying to treat hair loss. And we'll be here every day from 9:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you the topics that young people are talking about. Special thanks to Cheska Dainhong
Pleasure's mine. Thank you so much.
and Walter Lee.
Always lovely to be here.
Thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. We are
News Generation.
And
영원히